Hey everyone, this is E. Miller, and welcome back to another episode of Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. Tonight, I am with my very good guest, Sheng Xin. I hope I pronounced the last name right.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Oh man, that's good. Uh, yeah, he's got this amazing comic, Symphonic Versus. Please tell me about it. Tell us about it.
How it started, or the story, or what would you prefer?
Let's start the beginning. How it started.
Okay. I actually started working on the project in 1994, uh, and I remember I had I had just transferred into a new school, and I had a new science teacher, and she was going over the periodic table, and as she talked about it, she talked about the characters, the periodic table, as if they were people, and so some of that kind of stuck out to me. And I had always wrote stories. Growing up, I mean, as long as I can remember, I was drawing and telling my own stories and things like that. And so I started working on it, and before long, you know, days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and then years started going by, and I found myself uh, constantly building this world and these characters and this whole uh, existence that takes place in this story, and really bringing it to life more and more. And it's not a it doesn't take place on Earth. It's a completely made up world. It's a completely uh, a universe that is beholden just to itself, with its characters and its lore and with its history. And before long, it became so lifelike to me that it's like, you can see it with your waking eye. You don't have to dream about it. It's there. It just is as if reality is itself. And I always wanted to get into animation, but I didn't. I couldn't go to school for that. I couldn't afford to, all those years ago. And so I decided, I loved comics, not American comics. I grew up in a blended household, so part of my family is Asian. So from a very early age, I was exposed to manhwa, and I'm not really into manga. I've seen it like growing up, all of my life pretty much, but I was never really into that. There is some really very talented individuals, these experts from Japan, these masters that do that, but that's not what I was into. I was into the Chinese and Korean comics. That's what I really found to be interesting, and so that's what I learned, and that's what I studied, and that's what helped shape how I do art and how I designed characters. And it really was a learning curve, that it made a big impact on me. And then we're talking, you know 30 years ago, there was no social media, there was no internet of today. We didn't have cell phones like we do, so things were very isolated. And unless you knew someone, comics back in the day, it was kind of like old school wrestling, that unless you knew somebody or you were related to somebody who was in, it was hard to get your foot in the door. um, and so I just kept working on it and working on it, and turning it into this uh, this kind of story that it is, which ultimately, most every story that civilization writes about, that any man, woman writes about, it's really about what? It's about death. It's about the fact that this inevitability of death. That's what happens. Shakespeare wrote about it. uh, Homer wrote about it. Look at these great, literary tales, these great Greek heroes, Achilles and Odysseus, and look at all these things that were going on in the Iliad. And yet, death is such a central part of all of that, because it's this one thing that destroys all these things that are good, that it takes all these things that are happy and natural and it makes it unnatural. Even, really, even Professor Tolkien, who, a man, genius, ahead of the curve, he could see these kind of angles that other people weren't able to look at that way. And so that it's things like that that help you to um, develop the story. And it's not that you don't want to mimic what people do, but you want to learn from them and say, okay, what can I take away from this that I can do to improve what I'm doing, to keep refining these skills. And so all of that has played a part in what helped to create it.
Wow. Even just developing, just the characters and also just the world, yeah, that you're trying to create, in this universe. Yeah, it's massive because again, I can imagine that this universe is big.
Yeah, I mean, so in Symphonic Versus, the world that the story takes place in, it's called Levi Saminos V, and it's about 300,000 times larger than Jupiter. So it is a massive, massive world that
Wow.
the story takes place in. And in the story, when it starts in the first book, what's happened is you get a history of the creation of their world, the creation of their universe. But who's to say that that is the 100% correct facts of
Mhm.
what really happened? That's someone's interpretation of it, but there's more to it than that. And so when the story, as the story develops and as it goes on, where it starts is that there's a war that's been waged for 800 years by this dynasty called the Countathalian dynasty, and they, conquered most of their half of the world, and that's what took the 800 years. Is that the war? It was a that's a really daunting task to undertake, and so by the time where the story picks up, where you meet Adonis, who's the main character, and Adonis is a prince from the greatest kingdom in the north, which is called the Noctum Imperium. And he is the last of this venerated bloodline that's charged with protecting these swords of power, these swords of Eon. And there are two sets of them. You have the celestial swords of Eon, and then you have the symphonic swords of Eon. And the swords were blessed onto his bloodline by the dragons. There are these divine dragons who really are the architects of that their world and their mythos, and their even their not I wouldn't call them religious practices, but even things that are centered around their culture. And so his bloodline is unique because their blood came from the king of the dragons. And so he really he has a very unique position. On top of that, he has what's called a phantom power, but then he also has this ability to behold celestial light. And there's only one other person in their world who has that power, and her name is Sapphirose, and she's a princess from the Glass Kingdom, which the whole time the war's been going on, they haven't been involved, and Adonis's kingdom haven't been involved, not because they're pacifist. The Glass Kingdom, they've been practicing pacifism for the past 800 years to show that they would not be involved in this conflict that's going on. And so, as it's considered a neutral, like ground, there is a treaty signing that is set to take place. And so the Counterthalian dynasty is set to come there, and all of these other nobles and remnants from these other broken houses that still kind of are thriving, but they don't have the power they used to. They all come to witness this historic moment that would end the war. It would bring peace to the lands. And Adonis goes with his mentor, whose name is Concerto Maestro, and they're there just to witness this occasion. And by chance, he meets Sapphirose, and very interesting things start to happen with this meeting between them, because then they realize this power that they share, this ability, it allows them to do things that no one else can do. It allows them to behold things no one else can or would be able to understand. And that's where then the story begins to layer into itself about what is really going on and what's really happening. And ultimately in the story, Adonis, he sets out on this really sinister quest, this kind of perilous journey, because he's trying to find a way to do something really important, but to do it, he needs a really specific power, if it even exists, to achieve it. And so the story is not about good and bad, it's about evil and a greater evil. So how can you do what's right when you can only do what's wrong? You can only make bad choices to try to justify what is considered good in order to attain things that may not even be possible. And that's where everything then starts to become really murky, and nothing is so black and white. And then you start meeting all these array of characters and these mythical beasts, and just all these really, this epic quest that he begins to go on throughout the story to attain that. But then as things are going on, the cries of the dead are following him, because he then begins to fall into darkness. He begins to make really bad decisions, and it just kind of makes a mess that way. So
just the premise alone is exciting.
Oh, well, thank you.
Exciting. And this obviously took you many years to develop all this, but I remember our prior conversation. You had been rejected a number of times by a lot of the publishers. When did you start, submitting to publishers?
I think in 1998, I started sending out submissions, and I mean, I almost got 200 of them over, from like 1998 into 1999, all the way up until, I want to say, maybe 2016. And
man.
Yeah, so, and I had just, the first couple, they hurt. Like, it made, because you're just like, wow, that's really disappointing. But then by the fifth or sixth one, it was like, okay, now it's like a callus. It didn't hurt anymore, but I was determined to get, I just wanted to get my story out there. I just wanted to tell it. And yeah. I remember one day, a really prominent, very well-known, I guess kind of like an art agent in the comic industry. He works with every big name, Marvel, DC, you name it, he does work with them. And yeah. I took my portfolio to him. He came to a show, and I said, okay, maybe this will help. Like, this would be one of the ways that I could, get someone to look at it. So I go, and I had just printed 5 pages that I printed about 11 by 17 from the actual book.
Yeah.
And I went and I took it. I waited in line for my turn for him to review my work. And we're sitting there and he's going through it. He could not find the art to be wrong. He could not find the writing, the lettering to be wrong, nothing. So he had to find something to say as to why it wouldn't work. And he tells me, the problem is that you use too much Photoshop. That was what he said. I used too much Photoshop. And I said, but that's how you make it. It's made. Yes, some things I draw by hand, but ultimately they end up in the computer and they end up in Photoshop, and that's where they're finished and completely rendered and brought to life. But that's what he went with, because what I was doing was not a Western book. It was not a typical style comic, because where I learned, the art experts and the masters from China, from Korea, they do things very different there. And so that affected how I learned how to do that, how I'm still learning how to do that. And so that was the problem, is that no one wanted it because it was different, and they didn't know really what to do with it. And I mean, here's even another example. I went to Diamond Distribution. I sent in my book. I did everything that they require you to do for them to, look at your series. And I thought, okay, well, I'll do this, and we'll, something might happen. And so they messaged me back. Some time went by and they emailed me back and they said, we got your, submission and blah, blah, blah. And they said, but we're going to politely decline to pick up your book. And I thought, politely decline? I don't understand. And then as I read the rest of the email, the reason why is because they said they could not compare what I was doing to anything on the market. So because they couldn't compare it, they chose not to pick it up.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Because they couldn't compare it. So then I thought, well, if you can't compare it to something, maybe that means that's what you should be trying to look at. I thought the point, the message we hear from all of these companies, oh, we want new talent and new ideas and new stories, but then when you present them with that, they're not ready to accept it, and so they didn't. So so it just kind of happened that way. Yeah. Yeah.
Not quite. They're open up, but not quite open up to accept some change. They look at things a bit differently.
Yeah. And I mean, now look at how, anime has become mainstream pop culture.
Yeah.
I very much remember a time where to even get, any of the kind of anime that you were into, you had to go to Asian markets to get it typically. Some comic shops had it, not all. There were some that did, years ago. And they used to come in these really big plastic, those hard, like black or white cases. And you would open it and it had like the little clip in there that was the shape, the size of the video cassette. And you would have to put it in there to hold it. And it had that clear slip cover. And they would put the artwork, it would like be trimmed, and then they would just slide it in there. And it was like $40-$50 for
I remember
these, and so it was just one of those things where it was like this kind of unknown thing to so many people, but now it is everywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah. It has become so popular, and that's great. And I think what it took people realizing there are other ways to do things beyond how the West considers comics and things that are successful and things that really work a certain way. And now look how many creators want to make their own interpretation of a manga, or they want to have things that are very similar to these very prominent animes or these very popular mangas that are already out, and it sells and it draws in a huge market, and it's not slowing down. It just is continuing to pick up steam.
Yeah.
So I think it's, that has opened the doors for a lot of different things that 30 years ago, it wasn't like that. It was very different. And that's just how it was.
Yeah, and you're starting to see more indie books going in comic book shops now. A
Mhm.
lot more now because people just want variety. They want different
Yeah,
stories. They want different creators, and
yeah,
yeah, and it's now's the time. Now's the time to really
right.
do stuff like this.
Exactly. To make it different, to make it, to really offer something that is unique, that's not the same thing again and again and again. So that has really, that's kind of opened, it's opened the doors for so many things to become possible.
Yeah, yeah, to shake up the status quo, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, so even throughout all those rejections for all those years, you still said, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. I am going to do this myself. I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to learn about all the marketing. I'm going to do it myself. So, how did you do that without even doing one of these Kickstarter campaigns?
um so I early on, i started I started learning about trademarks and copyrights,
Mhm.
like in, I think 1995. I
Yeah,
got a book from my the library, which I still have. I never took that book back. It just happened to stay with me for like three
oh boy,
decades.
oh boy, oh boy. I hope to
But
God you don't receive a large bill from the
I
library
know.
saying you owe us this much money. Oh God.
So I kept the book, and it just was because I kept, like, okay, I was trying to learn about it. And so when I turned in the paperwork to get my first copyright, it was in 1997, uh, when I had done that. Now, the first time I printed, and when I say printed, made a copy of the book, was in 1996.
Mhm.
But I just had to take paper, and I had to take the pages and print them off in twos on a printer, and then fold it, staple it, trim it myself, and it looks
Yeah,
awful. It was like the pages are all jagged on the side. They're all messed up. I mean, and I would make those, and then I was taking them and selling them. The first copy I sold, I remember, was in front of a 7-Eleven, and I was just like showing it to people. I was green as the Emerald City, but I
yeah,
was like, this is just what I'm doing. So as the years went on, what I found is that to marketing is really about, it's kind of theatricality.
mhm,
You have to get someone emotionally invested. It's
yeah,
like someone saying, well, what makes you like a waffle? Well, simple. It's round, it tastes good, and it's easy to eat. It's not complicated. That's the same principle. That's really the same thing. That's all it really is you have to be able to take that concept and just apply it to anything. So then I would very carefully watch companies that did certain things that I liked a certain way, and I
mhm,
began to learn that there's a way to present that waffle. No matter what it is that you do, you're really selling someone. It's not that you don't have a viable product, but you have to kind of sell them smoke and mirrors to sell them the product.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to back up what you are offering to people. You don't want to say, oh, well, I can do this, and then time comes to deliver and you can't. That's the completely wrong. That's not the correct approach.
Yeah.
So, and I use the waffle as an illustration because it's just simple. I mean, a waffle is 90% genius and it's 10% simplicity. It's just an edible circle. That's it. It's the same principle. It is just that. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to start my own company. I'm going to offer, things that I wanted to do. And years ago, I always loved collectible video game sets,
Yeah.
and collectible game series, old school anime, like when it got to when you could get like the VHS box sets and it would come like in that one box and all the tapes would make one image and just all these kind of interesting things that I liked. And I said, well, I want to present that to people that way because no other comic does that. There's nobody doing that. I was selling collectible sets of comics before any publisher of today. And we're talking years ago, and I still have the pictures. There are fans who have been following the series for so many years, and they have the material from all those years ago to what it is now. And now it is simply that same concept, but it is exactly what it is supposed to be. And so I was going to shows selling these collectible sets. I had maps, I had lineage charts. I had the dialect breakdowns between the various races in it all there, and nobody else was doing that. No one. And I can 100% tell you, I'm sure there will be people who will watch and say, no, that's not possible. No, but no, it is factual. I was doing that before any other publisher, and I still do that today. But I know that I do it to a level and to a quality that is very hard to pass by and not acknowledge what it is. And so that's just how it started happening. So I put out, I had put out like prelude books and art books, and then I finally, was like, well, the whole first book is done. I'm going to put it out. Put it out, it sells out. I have to order more, it sells out. I have to order more, those sell out. Now, in total, because there are 7 graphic novels that I've published, book 8 is done. I'm just lettering it right now. All the artwork for book 9 is done, but I haven't started lettering that one yet. Ximphonic Versus is 930 chapters, and that's just the main storyline. That's not counting the side things with Sapphirос and Concerto and Lycos Ippitis, and there's all these other stories that are there. Just his main story by itself is 930 chapters. And so the graphic novels, where I'm at, I'm on book 7 right now that's published, and then book 8 will come out sometime in the fall, and then book 9 I'll put out maybe sometime early next year. And then I'm already like storyboarding and plotting out the visuals of how I'll do books 11 and 12 and 13, and it just it's just a labor of love.
It clearly is. As my God, 900 something chapters, and you're still on the main story.
That's just, and we really haven't even scratched the surface as to what is happening in the story. And there are so many characters. Like in book 1 alone, there's probably, I want to say at least 60 different characters that are introduced in just the first book. And it's done in a way where all these pieces are just setting the stage for what needs to happen next, and then what needs to happen after that. And then you're introduced to more new characters and more things, and their world is very baroque, but it's also it's modern, but in a way where, like, here's a perfect example. If you look at Castile in Spain or Cologne in Germany, where you have these great Gothic architectures, and then they're surrounded by these modern cities. So that is very reminiscent of some of the inspiration for their world, but then it has its own, I have my own take that I use on that, on the wuxia, which is very much inspired a lot of it. And it is dark fantasy, with the themes, the creatures, it really is. It's a story that is inevitably about death, and this very human aspect, but it's what happens when these characters deal with loss and with grief and just all these things that as people we can understand. It's just set in this really fantastical world.
My mind's blown, because again, it shows you clearly thought out every single aspect of the story so far.
Yeah, I mean, storytelling is like, it's like painting. You do a little here, you do a little there, and it may not seem like it makes sense to anyone who was just an onlooker, but you know what's going on. But once someone steps back from where the canvas is hanging, then they're able to see the whole picture, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I understand. Now I get what was going on, and that's how storytelling is done.
Sure, sure. I think it's time we show them the website. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay, let's show them the website. Man, it's a beautifully made website. I love the style that you got here. And someone said too much Photoshop.
I mean, and so the artwork for anyone who's not familiar. So first, let me introduce some of these characters. The gentleman in the front holding the sword, that's Prince Adonis. Now, Prince Adonis, he has tears of lightning that constantly stream out of his eyes. It runs through his hair. That's part of his divine power. So he was just born that way. And there's actually an image in the book of him and his father when he's about 2, and his father is holding him. And even though he's little and his hair is not as long, you can still see that power coursing through his body. And his father doesn't look like that, but for him to be the main character and for how important he is to everything, he needed to have a reason to be so different from everyone else. And so that's why he looks that way. Above him, that's Princess Sapphirose. Her real name is her full name is Sapphirose Sawir Florentissima. And as I said, she comes from the Glass Kingdom. This is actually her in her like warrior mode. She has an imperial attire where her hair looks different and her makeup on her face is different. You don't see the trimmed down hairstyle. It looks very different. To the left, that is one of the villains. That's one of the main villains, and her name is Empress Harpsichord, and she is the ruler of the Crystallis Kingdom. And she's terrible. I mean, she really is just an awful, awful person. And then in the upper right, the woman with the red and black hair, that is Countess Concerto, who is Adonis's mentor. And so she helped raise him. She helped train him all of his life. When we meet him in the story, he's over 400 years old. And now she's much older than him. Sapphirose is. Empress Harpsichord is much older than all of them. But she plays such a pivotal role in the story and in his life. So she really is. She's one of my Concerto is one of my favorite characters.
I have to say, they've all aged very well.
Oh yeah, yeah. I wish I had that kind of problem. That would be nice.
Yeah, this is just stunning work.
Oh,
Really,
thank
he
you.
said too much Photoshop?
Yeah,
Oh,
he said too much Photoshop. Yeah, yeah. And a buddy of mine was there when it happened, and he was just like, I don't understand. Why did he say that? I said because he had to find something to say. He had to find something to say against it. And that's just what it is. So, and all the art in the book, every page and panel, it's drawn this way to this level of detail.
mhm.
This is how it looks. So this isn't one of those things where the cover looks a certain way and then you open it and the art is completely different.
Yeah.
No, it is the same from outside to inside. This is what you get.
Well, I figured that because the level of the covers, you wanted to match that type of level in the interior pages. So if you're telling us that this is how it looks in the interior pages, then you've clearly done your job because I'm pretty sure if people have bought the book, I know this for a fact, if people bought the book, it's like looking at a work of art.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to make something, just something that was the story the way that I wanted to tell it, because the things that I wanted to see, no one was doing it, and so I was like, well, I just want to do the things that I want to do, tell the stories that I want to tell, and I couldn't find it, and so I had to do it, and that's what kind of set everything on this path, and but this is the end result of it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic end result.
And it just kind of I think if you go a little lower, there's actual, yeah, so some of these, like, these are so, like, these individual images, those are actual panels and pages from the series, so this is what it actually is.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Oh, thank
Wow.
you.
Yeah, wow. You don't really you don't see artwork like this, and it annoys me that when because I remember you telling me this before the show started that people thought this was AI imagery, but I'm like, no, this is not AI imagery. This is actual drawings and artwork.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I there are articles there. I have Facebook posts that are 11, 12 years old, like, how they give you the memories about, um, on this day, where I posted stuff that I was getting ready to show people, with the books, and so it's like, no, that this is a lifetime of work to bring this to life that way. See the picture where it looks like stairs
Yeah.
in that doorway? If you click on that one, so this is a very small snippet from a full page of this really ancient and sacred gateway, and it's what lies beyond that is, it, like, will, you know it will blow your mind. But I only show bits and pieces like this. I never show full panels, like full pages. There are no digital versions of the book, none. It is solely a physical printed series, and I do that so that two things. One, I don't want to I don't want to take away from the reader the experience of going through the story and seeing the things that happen. And two, I get digital. It's far cheaper. It's, it's easy to do, but it's not the same thing like having it in hand. It just, it's not the same effect. So
Yeah.
Symphonic Versus is only physical. There are no digital copies of it, and I could never let the book be presented that way. For me, it would do a disservice to the work. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I think you're correct because I think yeah, digital it is cheaper, but people really do like the physical books. It's something that they
Hmm.
can hold, and flip
Yeah,
through
yeah,
because
exactly.
there's such a dissatisfaction when you're going through the digital stuff.
Right. And I mean, because it's just like on your phone. Yeah, our smartphones of today, it's useful. It allows us to stay in touch and do so many things that we couldn't do years before, but you don't get that same experience that you would get from having the actual product right in front of you.
Yeah,
So
well,
it,
it's just fantastic.
oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I have books. I brought books that I could show you,
Yeah.
and show watchers. So I print magazine size. I don't like standard
Oh,
size. That it just seems like you're constraining too much space for me. I like to feel like you need a little more room to breathe.
yeah.
So this is Consequence One. This is the first book, and it's over 200 pages. And I used to print softback, but now all the books that I print are hardcover. They're
Yeah.
all hardcover now, instead of how they were. So that's book one. Uh, this is book two.
Wow, I really like the covers.
This is book three.
Man.
This is book four. This is book five.
Very nice. Very
That,
nice.
and of course the Chinese. I mean, that is significant. A Song of Raging Storms. That is significant to the story.
Yeah.
Symphonic Verses, in many of its ways, it really is like an opera. It's like this. It's like a dark opera. I mean, that's really what I would conclude it to be, because so much of it is written around music, and the theory of music, the aspects of it that way. Even when you see the logo, like this is book six, but when you
Yeah.
look at the logo, you see right there, you've got the treble clef between the X and the V, and so that's part of that makeup with music being ingrained in it. And then this is book seven.
Wow.
So on the back cover, and so yeah, that's the, and like, let me find her work that I could show you. Um, oh, here we go. I mean, this is,
Oh my God. Wow. Great
so
double spread. Great double spread.
it so yeah, it, as I said, it is what it looks like. That is, that's there, and that's the other part why I don't show it, because I want people to experience that. I don't want to take that away from them. I want them to be able to see that for themselves the first time.
Yeah.
And I have got so many messages from readers who, they've cried, they've, the impact it's had on them, how it, even aspects to where it's made them say, I reflect on how I deal with my family, because of how, looking at the tragedies that have taken place in this story, and the way to kind of make sure, like, hey, I got to make sure that I'm doing everything to not ever be that kind of person.
Yeah.
um, so I'm very grateful that people enjoy it. And then one day, um, bef- before the first book even came out,
Mm-hmm.
I was still getting all the rejections, all the stuff, and a guy asked me what was it, and it was a picture of Adonis, the main character, and I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is just a character from my book." And he says, "Okay, I want you to call this number at exactly 3 p.m. on Monday." And I'm like, "Okay," like I thought maybe he was like an art dealer, or
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what was going on exactly, but he's like, call this number at exactly 3 p.m. Do not be late. And he emphasized that. Don't be late. I said, okay. So I checked to make sure the difference of the time zones, that I had the right time. Monday rolls around, I call, and I start dialing at like 2:59, and
Mm-hmm.
then it turns 3. He answers the phone, and he's like, good, you called on time. He said, okay, I'm here, the board of directors are here, the president of the film company is here, you have 30 seconds, pitch it to us. And I will never forget this. I'm holding my phone, and I thought, this is a joke, right? Like, you guys are like, I'm being punked or something. Like, this is like somebody's gone out of their way to you know to do this. And I go into it. I do my 30 seconds, and they're like, okay, hold on. And what they're saying is inaudible. I can hear them talking, but I can't make out what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then the president of the film company gets on the phone, and he says, you know what? I really like that. So we're going to turn it into a TV show. And I thought, what?
What just
Wait,
happened?
what just happened? I'm like, wait, a TV show? I couldn't get a publisher to publish it. I couldn't get a publisher to say we're just going to make copies of this and get it out there. And yet a film studio said the fact that one image impressed them enough that they're like, okay, we like this. Let's turn this into a show. So at that point, I feel like I'm not sure what just happened.
Yeah.
And it's like this surreal thing that's kind of sinking in. And I'm just like, wait a minute. Is this like a Twilight Zone thing? Or like, is someone going to call me and be like, oh, it was just, we were pranking you. It was just a joke, man. And I kept expecting that to happen. And they send me next thing I know, like a few days later, I get the contract agreement in the mail, and you know and I'm just like, wait, all this stuff. So then that changed the dynamic of what I had with the book. So then I put the first book out. And remember how
Yeah.
I said they sold out, and then they sold out, and they sold
Yeah.
out again. And I mean, so here we are, 7 volumes in. uh, I've sold over 7,000 physical copies in total of the series. They're, you know, and that to me, that was a testament to not. I always tell people, it's at the end of the day, yes, this is my story. Yes, these are my characters, but this isn't about me. This is about them. This is about their story, and it's about the people who believe in it that turn it into something else. And so the fans, you share that experience with them. And so then it's like, okay, now there's all these book sales. And then originally, and I can talk about this publicly because that deal fell through. Originally the show was supposed to be on Amazon.
Yeah.
So I get the TV deal in 2017. uh Into 2018, the trailer goes into production. They're working on it. and it, the storyboarding, it's so many, and they let me direct the trailer. So I got
Wow.
to write and to direct it. The executives at the film studio, they allowed me to do that. And I said, okay. So we do that. Then the actual animation process starts, and they said it's going to take about 9 months to get everything done for the trailer. I said, okay. That was in 2019. As the animation's going on, the original deal was it was going to stream on Amazon.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic hits. Everything closes.
Uh,
Everything shuts down. And so that deal now was no longer valid because with animation studios closing, everything shutting down, you can't invest hundreds of millions of dollars into something and there's no market that's openly active to receive it and sell it and all. I mean, just there is just so many parts that make TV shows what they are, and there are a lot of things. I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to I didn't go to school for animation. I didn't go to art school. Period. I learned everything on my own, but those entities are not things that I've studied in any capacity. Next thing you know, I'm kind of thrust into this world where it's like, oh wow, now I'm seeing behind the curtain. I'm seeing the other side of what makes that part of the industry function and tick. And so it was like, okay, there's nothing we can do. So that deal fell apart. The animation didn't get finished for the trailer, and so then I was still like, well, I'll just continue to do like selling the books, and so that's what I kept doing. Well, where we are today, in 2022, I went to the network executives, and I said, look, I want to get everything going again for the trailer. I want to, but I want to completely redo it. And they were like, okay, that's fine. So I go to Japan, and not physically, just I reach out to artists that I know,
yeah.
and I meet artists who worked on Final Fantasy. So now let's put that in perspective. We're talking about one of the most popular and enduring game franchises in the world.
Yeah.
And they worked on Final Fantasy 14. And I go to them and I say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. This is, I got introduced to them through people that I know. And I said, this is what I'm trying to do. And it's for a TV show that's going to come to streaming. And they're like, okay, we'll storyboard it. So they start storyboarding it based off of the new things that I wanted to do and expand on the scenes, because there were a lot of things that the first group of animators I worked with, there is a literal difference of mindset between East and West. It's just how it is. It's very easy for them to grasp the ideas that I have, the things that I want to do. They understand it.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain that to the people here, and there were things they didn't get because to them it didn't make sense to do all of this kind of stuff. But culturally, they understood it right away. So we get the storyboarding done, and we spent about a year working on that, just getting that perfected, because and I was getting a free education from them, because what they were basically saying is, hey, this scene is great, but we have to think about how the camera is going to move, how the lighting's going to change. So these are things that we might want to, do. And I'm like, great, you guys are the experts. Whatever we need to do to make this really something that is just outstanding, that's what we need to do. So we get it all done. It's absolutely beautiful. So all the storyboarding is now done, and so it's like, okay, now I know where the show is going to stream. I just can't talk about it until the deal goes through. So that's where it's just like, I can't say anything, but I'm waiting for that part. So I'm like, okay, well now I want to try my hand at the next thing, the action figures.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I don't know anything about making toys. I don't. No matter what it is that you do, a chef, a painter, a sculptor, a scientist, whatever it is, there is a technique. There is a level of mastery needed to do certain things and to do it the right way. And so I was like, I want to get my own figures made. So I find a company overseas. I talk to them. I show them artwork. I show them things that I want to do, and they're like, "We've made other toys. We've never made something like this, but we'll try. We'll just make one and see how it works." Well, that turned out to be an extremely beneficial relationship, because now I'm very happy to say that I opened a division of my company my company is called Phantom Blade Productions, and I now have a division of it called Phantom Blade Kaiden, and that is the toy division of the company. The action figures are coming out this fall. They will be available at Walmart. I'm already talking to Big Bad Toy Store. So we're already getting all these things set up and in place. And so what I have now is I can actually show you not only the figures, but I can show you the boxes that they will come in. I never just wanted to do average size figures. I always loved the 1/6 scale, like the Final Fantasy toys that were just from Play Arts Kai. They're so detailed, they're so stunning. And I said, that's what I wanted to do. So this is the main character. This is Crown Prince Adonis. And this thing is, it has to weigh at least 2 pounds because of the amount of plastic. So this is his figure. This is the first figure that will release in the line. And he comes with 6 swords, a spear, a dragon shield, his phantom power, and Ignis power. It comes with a stand, all of that stuff. So, and when I saw this for the first time, I'm not a parent. I have nieces and nephews, but I guess that's what it's like when people who have kids see their child for the first time and they're like, hey, I made this. It's that same kind of thing where it's like, I made that. And I'm like, I remember I went to my dad's house and I'm like, Dad, I made this. Like, I made that. I didn't make it, but I made it. I made him. I made his design and his character. And to see something that 30 years ago was just an idea, but now to see it in this tangible form, it blew my mind. So this is the Prince Adonis figure, and the pre-orders opened up earlier this year. 24 hours they were sold out, all of them. So they're all gone. So the manufacturer is having to produce more of them while all the first ones are being tooled and processed. And I got an update on the weapons today. I saw the other 3D swords that are we're doing 3D printing for a lot of the weapons because it's just more cost effective than trying to sculpt it the traditional way. But so here, this is the Princess Sapphiros's figure in her imperial attire. And this is how she looks in the first book. So when you meet her at the treaty signing, this is what she looks like. Now, what's neat is that in the book, her dress, it is enchanted. There are these divine waters from with a place in their culture, a land, like it's like a sacred land where the waters they enchant the armor and the clothing of those who are of the noble bloodline, and it looks like water is coming out and wrapping around her dress, but it doesn't get anything wet. It doesn't dampen anything. It is this really unique thing. They made the plastic that you can put around her that mimics what you see in the graphic novel. So
Wow.
yeah, so this is her. This is her figure. Um, and of course, how she looked on the website. See, that's how she looks in her armor, but this is how she looks in her imperial attire. This is one of her designs. Her weapons actually. Let me show you. She comes with. This is actually. It's a musical instrument. It's like a harp. The strings are missing at the top, but there is a sword inside. So this is a King Falcon blade that is there. Then she comes with bow and arrow. So she'll have these. It's got a real string. Arrows are removable from the quiver. So those will come with her as well when her figure releases. She also has a scythe that she uses. It's called the Elegance of Fire, and so this is another weapon that she can wield in the series. And she comes with one spear. So these are just the accessories that will come with her figure. Next, this is Adonis's mentor. This is the Concerto figure,
Wow.
and this is actually this is her one of her armors that she wears. In the first book, she's not in it, but in book 3, she gets into this armor, and then she's in that down to book 7. But then she's going to change into a more powerful suit of armor in the next book. But this is her. This is Concerto, and they did such a good job. And I mean the details. I know it's hard to say, but the amount of details they got from my design in the figure, it's so spot on. It's so accurate. And she comes with this is a shield that she has that will be attachable, where you can put it on and off. And then there will be another one that has a phoenix on the shoulder that will sit there, and then the phoenix design is here with that. And then she also has this is her sword that you see her use. And what's interesting is that they somehow were able to make the sound where when you resheath it,
Yeah.
it
Wow.
makes that little sound. So they even got that detail for her figure. So that's the Concerto. This is one of the villains. This is Florette. She's a lieutenant commander in the Shadow Knight army. Um, she's she she knows how to kill people like Adonis and Sapphirose. She has been trained to kill people with powers like that they have. So she's very lethal, very dangerous, and she'll come with another head where you see it with the mask off, and
Yeah.
you're able to see what she looks like. But this is, she's got long hair, and her weapon. Part of the mold broke when they delivered it. The box was crushed in, so it broke part of the mold. But this is her main weapon, which is this spear that has these multiple massive blades on it. And I mean, she's 11 inches and change, and look how much bigger it is than her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and when her figure comes out, we'll have to make it where it will disconnect so that it can get put in there, because it's too big to get put in there that way. So that's one of the first villains from the line. And this is the other villain. This is a Shadow Knight swordsman. And there's like millions of these guys. They're like in Star Wars, they had the clones.
Yeah.
The Shadow Knight warriors. This is the standard level. There are elite versions of the Shadow Knights that have different colors, different armors, and those will get made too. But this is the first one of those. So it comes with double swords. Swords are removable from the sheath. There's actually it's like a fabric kind of material that they have for the hip, like part of the hip armor. And I mean, just the amount of detail that they were able to put into this, and this one is so heavy uh, because of how big it is.
Yeah.
So these the starting with Adonis this year, and then the other ones will release into 2025, and then Wave Two. We're already talking about the designs for which characters will go into Wave Two, which villains. You're going to get Adonis in a different suit of armor. You'll get Sapphirose in her armor, Concerto in a different armor, a different Shadow Knight, and then one of the Shadow Knight warlords, one of the main villains. But now let me show you the boxes. So each figure will come in this kind of box,
Wow.
securely packaged inside of this, and it's got like the logo, the Ximphonic Versus logo on the side, on the back. There's artwork inside, so when you open it, it has everything right there. Now there's another box, which that one I don't have yet. I'm waiting for that one to get here, but it's 12 by 12 by 5. That's what will hold all the weapons and effects and stuff like that. And then all of that goes into this box.
Wow.
This is what they will come in. So the logo here, that's the logo for the toy division, Phantom Blade Titan, and that's the company logo right there. These are the UPCs for stateside and then international. So I had to get making toys. There are so many laws, so many regulations, EPA things that you have to agree to, that you have to just all this stuff. But so I did all that. So you have those there. It shows Adonis on the side. It describes what he comes with. And then those two boxes go in here, and then you get this big collectible box that houses the figure. So that's what's going on with everything. And I've been on Screen Rant, I've been on MSN, I've been on Fox News, on CEO Weekly. USA News just did a piece about my series, and they said Ximphonic Versus is the West answer to Final Fantasy and Castlevania. And I thought, to even be mentioned in the same sentence as those kind of legendary series, but then it didn't stop there. I have been fortunate enough that CEO Weekly did a cover article, and I think I sent you that link, where I was able to show my work to Santa Monica Studio, to Konami, to Blizzard, and people from those entities have praised what I'm doing. And I thought, if you have the brilliant minds at Santa Monica Studio, God of War sold almost, I think, 70 million copies in total of the series, AAA developer, yet they're telling me that what I'm doing is right, that I'm doing it right. And I'm like, I couldn't get publishers again to publish it. But now these people from all these amazing places in these industries are like, yeah, no, this guy's doing it right. This is the way to do it. And it's a humbling experience, because it's just like, again, I'm just a guy. It's not about me. It's about the story. It's about the product. But the fact that people of that caliber can look at what I'm doing and they can say that about it, and I that's a win. And I'm just grateful for that. And I accept that, and I just want to keep making sure that I'm delivering things that live up to those expectations, so people continue to get quality.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a huge win when you have those companies look at your stuff and say you're on the right track. You're doing it. You're doing the right thing. And then the fans constantly buying more and more of the copies and saying, when's the next one coming out?
Right.
That's when you really know that when you've arrived. You know, when you
Yeah,
have people like that saying, oh, this is fantastic, or when's the next one coming out,
yeah.
especially from those companies, you're like, that's mind blowing.
It is. I mean, I never in 100 years would have guessed that the things that are happening would have happened ever. I didn't set out to do this. I didn't set out to do all these things. That was never my intention. I just wanted to publish my book, and I hoped that someone would like it. Someone, just even if it was just a individual or a small handful of people, and that would have been enough. And but these things happen that are so incredible, and I'm so grateful for. Um, and I try to tell creators all the time, I'm living proof that you can break the molds that people try to say it has to be this way. No, it doesn't. You can do your own thing, and you can make it work, but you have to work at it, and you
Yeah.
have to be willing to take the hits, because the hits are going to come. You're
Oh
going to
yeah.
have so many setbacks, the disappointments, the failures, the things never working out. But if you give up, you don't really want it. You have to fight for it. You have to fight for it every day. And it took 30 years for these things to shape this way out for me. So it took time. But if I would have tried to do it another way, or if I would have tried to do it in a way that fit what is popular or the way, the expectation, I don't think I'd be where I'm at right now if I
Yeah.
did it that way. So you have to stand behind your convictions, and you have to believe in what you're doing. And so now, that's led to other things. I'm actually writing video games now because of the comic book. Game developers reached out to me and asked me to be the world builder and do the lore for uh, different video games. One of them is for Sony. One of them is for an independent company. But it's like, now, I mean, aside from just selling books, the TV stuff, I've been working from home since 2017. And I mean, this is just what I do. This is just my job, is this stuff, from games, the comics, now the toys, and every day I'm grateful that I literally get to do what I love. um, and it just all happened to work out that way. But if I would have given up, or if I would have tried to do things that other people are doing, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Wow. Well, that's a great way to be, and I commend you, sir. For sticking to your guns and keep doing what you're doing. Trust me, uh, more great things are gonna come for you.
Well, I'm just grateful for the things that happen. I appreciate you letting me, come on your show and talk, and share my story. And I really think it's important to share my experience with creators, especially people who maybe are new, or they've only been at it for a few years. There's so many advantages of today that did not exist 25, 30 years ago. It just wasn't like that. It was so different. So uh, I just appreciate where I'm at. I'm very grateful for that. Um, and all I can try to encourage people to do is, we just have to keep learning. You
Yeah.
have to keep learning and growing, and every day learning something for your craft, for writing, for marketing, for those are the things that you have to do. um, and and you just can't give up. You just have to pursue it, and do it because you love it, not for
Yeah.
clicks, not for online likes, not for, no, no, no. If you get caught up in that kind of stuff, you will never survive, because you're too worried about the perception of what is popular, as opposed to actually creating quality. And there's a difference between those things. There's a difference between that kind of mentality. And so, you know, creators don't fall into that trap. because it leads nowhere. Yes, there will be groups of people. There are people that I know who, when I used to try to get on podcasts, sometimes I couldn't. I had one guy, a friend of mine said, "No, I'll give up my spot so that you can get on the show, because I've already been on." He booked me the day of the show. He lied, canceled it, told me a bold-faced lie as to why he's canceling it, and said he's not doing any more shows. And the next week, he was right back to shows, but he didn't want to do it because his group of friends, because I wasn't in their clique, they didn't think that I had anything substantial to share or to do. And so, I look at certain things and it's like, that's the other part. Don't get caught up in this, oh, well, that person did a Kickstarter. Man, if they did it, that's so great. They did it. Okay. That really doesn't mean anything. That's not true victory. That's not to demean what they do. What I mean is that you can't take that one aspect and say, okay, I did that, so now it puts me up here. No, it doesn't. It just means you've done that thing, but now you need to find a way to keep doing it and keep doing it better than that last time. That's what it means. And you have to keep evolving how you do it, not just solely relying on crowdfunding, because then you limit yourself. You limit yourself to what you can do. Yes, I don't use it. But that's just me. I understand why people do it, but don't let yourself get caught in that kind of cobweb. That's what can happen, and it does you no good to do that. And now I look at where I'm at, and it's like, yeah, there were people who didn't want to give me a chance publishing, people who didn't want to give me a chance on podcasts, all these things. But now I'm sitting at tables with AAA developers. Now I have TV shows. Now I have toys. I have all these things going on that in my wildest dreams, I never would have imagined. And I mean, even actors and actresses from major films have bought whole sets of books. I mean, the amount of things that I could talk about that have happened are just, it's mind-boggling. And it's like, so now, MSN did a cover article on the IP. They said I had the best comic that people haven't read yet. And that's MSN. It's a news website. But yet they saw the value of what I was doing, and they're like, yeah, we're going to write an article about this because it needs to be told. Screen Rant, they even told me, they said, typically we only cover very large, well-known properties, but they said, what you're doing is so unique. We have to tell the story. We have to share it. And they wrote an article about it. And next month, the Wikipedia page is getting published. So now my series has become so notable. It's got its own Wikipedia page. I've seen it. They've wrote it. And it's getting published, I think like in the middle of September. So, and that is a grueling process. When I say grueling, I mean, even the other news articles, they have to fact check the things you tell them. You can't just say, oh, I did this and that. And it's like, well, if you can't actually back that up with proof, they're not going to cover it. They're going to be like, well, no, this really didn't happen. So I have all these things that I share with them that I don't share publicly, conversations and emails and things, things that I've been able to do with people that I've met. And the one for Wikipedia has been the hardest one. Like, not hard in the sense of like it's difficult. It's everything, the amount of detail that goes into checking everything. And they're like, no, we have to. And I'm like, of course, it has to be presented as it is. You can't try to this and that. I tried to get an interview once at a magazine that's for independent creators, and they said, "Oh, well, we can't verify that you've sold the amount of books that you've sold." I said, "Yes, you can. I have the receipts from my website. It print. I have a copy of every sale that comes through. I don't put that information out there, but I have it." They didn't believe me, so they canceled my interview. They told me that I was lying, and I'm like, yet now national news outlets have been able to vet and verify these facts that I have so that they could publish these stories. So it's just like, you know, and now for Wikipedia, yeah, I had to actually send them like the sales receipts that show people's personal information, and they're not after that. They just have to make sure of things. So I'm like,
Yeah.
it's fine. But it's like, here it is. Here's all these things. So again, don't fall into that trap of believing that, oh man, this guy did that, oh she did that on Kickstarter. Okay, that's not enough. That's not enough. You have to get beyond that. I get it. Use it. Use that tool to help you grow what you're doing, but you have to be able to think laterally, a different way, to then take what you're doing to the next stage. I had a creator message me about. They said they want to get their comic turned into a TV show and a faithful adaptation, and I said that's cool, but unless you have all the money, you don't get to make the rules. It's not. It doesn't work that way. The network makes the rules. The executives make the rules. The director, now depending on the deal you have, if you have a deal like I'm the one I have, I'm very fortunate to have. I'm an executive producer and I'm a lead writer on all my shows that they've optioned to pick up. So I have a semblance of influence as to, certain things. But at the end of the day, if the network says no, we don't want that part in, we want this part, there's nothing I can do about that. Like, that's just what it is. So I try to tell them, if you want to do that, make sure you really create a solid product. It's really something that is sellable, and then you have to understand that you don't get to decide what will happen. You're a part of it, but you're a small part of it. Everything else, it's too many cogs that move that make TV and film functional. And unless you've got hundreds of millions of dollars, you don't get to decide what happens. So that's just how it is.
Yeah. Well, sir, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and talking to us and sharing your story. It's very inspirational. I certainly learned a few tricks here and there from you. So hopefully, I'll take that with me.
Oh, well, no, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry I didn't mean to just ramble on about
No.
things.
Yeah, you have to understand. It's inspiring to hear stories like this, particularly your story. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I mean, this has been really, I've enjoyed it a lot. I really have.
Well, you're welcome to come back, to promote another book.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to come back on at some point. Maybe when the next book, or once stuff with the toys are going on, or I've got some more stuff, exciting news to share. I'd love to come back and share it with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that sounds great.
All right. Well, before we leave, folks, as always, I like to plug in my own stuff. Of course, at the bottom there, I'm at indieplaid.com with my series Codename Hunter, issues 1 through 3. I'm currently working issue 4 right now. It's a little backed up because I've got my other work going on right now. So don't worry, it is coming. And of course, I have my my own work on tpublic.com, which has the Little Ian merch. There's my character, one of my characters, Little Ian, and there's my other character, Codename Hunter. Yeah, this comes in T-shirts, coffee mugs, hats, cell phone covers, artwork, pillows, the works.
Wow, I like it. That's nice, man.
Yeah. Yeah, especially since the holidays are really coming up soon, you might want to start buying some of the Christmas stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love the one that's like the homage to Jaws.
Everyone loves that one. Everyone
That
loves
is
that
really
one.
cool.
I've had more sales on that than anything else.
It's really cool. I like that. That's really neat.
Yeah, when Blu-rays attack. Yeah, because I remember the
Good.
Jaws cover that had a reflective cover, and I was always afraid of that when I was a kid. So I was like, it would be make a great T-shirt. The cover
I like
tips.
it. That, but see, that's what I mean. That's thinking outside the box, and that's
Yeah,
those are just the things to keep doing. So that's really awesome.
yeah. Well, I think that's gonna be it for us tonight. I'm Ian Miller, and this has been Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel. Have a good night, folks.
Take care.